they're trying to make him a martyr. Have you heard about Groyper's? Yeah. Yeah, that's part of what I want to talk about today too. Because, I have to make this disclaimer out there because otherwise, you know how they are. They're claiming the left is violent and the left is to blame for this. They claimed us calling the maggots Nazis is what caused this. They said apparently calling a MAGA person a Nazi is violence, they say. With no awareness of what violent rhetoric Kirk himself was spreading. And, they were really quick with the proclamation that this was some left-leaning person or some trans person or someone who likes trans people right off the bat before they had any information, any evidence to, support any of the wild claims they were making. And I think the Washington Post or one of the newspapers had to kind of make a retraction. The Guardian had to make a retraction, but the damage was already done because, they put out these stories that have been debunked, claiming that the shooter was a left-leaning person, which, even though it's been debunked and they've been like, hey, we were wrong, we jumped the gun, they put out the disclaimer. Screenshots of the old articles before they were updated are already taken and being circulated all over the internet, and MAGA is going to completely ignore the retraction as if the retractions never happened because it's not convenient to their narrative. Additionally, there has been evidence to support the alleged shooter might be a groyper, which if you don't know what a groyper is, you're very lucky. Groypers makes MAGA look like they're not alt-right enough in a lot of ways. Like groypers are Nick Fuentes, white supremacist, is kind of their leader. And a lot of the groypers felt Charlie Kirk was not right-leaning enough. And so there has been suggestions and evidence that potentially maybe, the shooter was a groyper. And, the bullet casings, a lot of memes and internet culture that is really common in groups of groypers. So, maybe, who knows, we can't really verify this yet. They probably won't verify anything anytime soon. But the Utah governor, has been still suggesting that, this potential shooter, accused shooter is left-leaning, ignoring, this potential that he might be a groyper and maybe he just thought Kirk wasn't right-leaning enough. There is also speculation that maybe this was a professional job because there's a lot of things that make it seem professional. There's a lot of stuff that's really kind of questionable about, like, he had the rifle, he didn't have the rifle, he changed clothes, and then it's like, if you kind of review things, it just all seems kind of fishy. And the shot was so good, and there was a guy doing some like hand signals on the stage right before it got shot. And supposedly one of the guys that was like a decoy that they arrested and his like pants were falling down is supposedly might be some kind of an actor that was there on the scenes when 9/11 happened. And so that's a claim I've seen thrown out, which is kind of fishy. But I was reviewing video of Charlie Kirk today because there has also been a claim that, maybe Israel is involved because he had been asking a lot of questions about Israel. And it's really interesting if you kind of look into what he was saying about Israel over the months. And then, there's other people that say, well, maybe MAGA Trump did it because he called in July for the release of the Epstein files. So, these are all these theories. None of them really have been able to be substantiated at this point in time. MAGA is trying to say that the alleged shooter had a trans roommate slash potentially partner, but this doesn't really seem to even pan out either, because they were basing that based on the fact that the person used a TikTok filter that made them into a woman once. Like that doesn't necessarily make someone trans. So that, there's a lot being thrown out there and nothing has really been substantiated, and we still have MAGA people who are really using this to try and make Kirk into a martyr, in my opinion. You can see also like there was a video that his wife Erica put out, and she's like standing on the podium and his empty chair is next to her, and there's like all this Trump 47 memorabilia around. Everything is in white when, traditionally a widow would be wearing black, right, and mourning, but everything is just white to make her look like this holy, like, figure, almost have her just in a white room, dressed in white, very ethereal looking, and, just really not at all trying to de-escalate the situation, but really trying to escalate the situation, looking by her language. And, the same has also been um, true with the president. He basically said he didn't care about when MAGA people are violent. He only cares about violence from the left, which, again, so far, most of what I'm seeing suggests that this was probably a right-leaning person who felt maybe Kirk wasn't right-leaning enough, but really, even that's speculation because, this kid's 22 and had never voted. If he's even really the shooter and not just some scapegoat that MAGA is using, because that is also a possibility that maybe this guy isn't the shooter. Although, personally, I would think if they're using this guy as a scapegoat, they would have picked someone who is not white and someone who is not raised in like a Christian family, someone who wasn't from a right family, right? Like that's kind of interesting. Like if they were going to use a scapegoat, you would think they would want it to be someone who didn't fit their demographic, because that's very inconvenient for them. They were really, really hoping it was someone who was clearly trans or not white. But even before this happened, I know because I've been, listening to MAGA people, and I'm in Texas, so sometimes they'll come up and talk to me because I am pasty enough to not, look like I come from the background I come from, and so they think I'm someone who's going to be sympathetic to their views, so they will tell me all their plans and all of their nightmares. And so, several years ago, before all of this really started to get blown up and before people were even talking about Project 2025, we had a handyman who used to be a really great generator repair guy. And, I knew he was a Jesus freak, so to speak, but he wasn't super political when we first worked with him. But, the guy did lose his job, became very radicalized during COVID. And then after COVID, I think maybe 2021 or somewhere around there, 2020, 2021, we had him come back and do work for us. And he had just completely been radicalized and was telling me all about how, this holy war was coming and Project 2025 and how they were going to overthrow the government and how the other side wasn't going to see this coming. And this was like, like I said, 2020, 2021, somewhere around there. This was many years back that they have, and it doesn't surprise me because, I grew up around Christian nationalist young people and, vacation Bible school. And I went to like a fundamentalist Christian private school for about 6 months before my mom figured out what it was. I saw racism in our educational materials that I brought home, and she pulled me out of there. So like, they've been preparing for a holy war their whole lives, a lot of them. Like they've been told this is a war on good versus evil. And many of them believe like in this new sick modern version of manifest destiny that they need to like purge us sinners out. And so like they've been basically for years just like on hold being trained for this holy war that they're ready for. And so now, they are really propping Kirk up as a martyr, which is really dangerous. And so stumbling through YouTube this morning and the last few days, like there are so many creators that are MAGA that don't even necessarily normally talk about political things. Like I was watching some car guy today, um, talking about this civil war that's coming because, we've got people like Elon Musk, who, let me get the exact quote so I don't get it wrong. I don't want to misquote the motherfucker. Um, but literally at an alt-right rally, we have people like Musk um, telling them that they need to get violent because violence is coming to them, basically. And so, like, so many of them, even before this, have been preparing for war, really looking for a reason to go to war or looking for a reason to get violent. And so, that's the real danger of this Charlie Kirk thing. Like, we can go, I mean, the man uh, was, live by the sword, die by the sword. You can say all of that. And, that can be maybe, however you feel about that or not. And be careful what I say on here, just so I'm not taken out of context. But we have people in power who are really flaming the flames, trying to get these people who are really trigger happy and just like looking for a reason to go, desperate for a reason to go, get them like shaken up like hornets in the jug, right? Like, and then let them out. And so they are really trying to escalate the MAGA people to get them angry to where they're ready to go. So like what Elon Musk said recently in a rally is, and this is a direct quote, my message to them is if this continues, the violence is going to come to you. You will have no choice. You're in a fundamental situation here. Whether you choose violence or not, violence is coming to you. You either fight back or you die. That's the truth, I think. So that's what Elon said in an alt-right rally in Europe recently. So how is that not inciting violence, right? And then we had Marjorie Taylor Greene, who put this post out recently. And this is another quote from Marjorie Taylor Greene. So once again, you're inciting violence. This is a Twitter post. And she also went on air and said similar. She said, there's nothing to talk about with the left. They hate us. They assassinated our nice guy who actually talked to them peacefully, debating ideas. Okay. Then millions on the left celebrated and made it clear they want all of us dead. Okay, it's not millions. I think the biggest website where they've been collecting data to dox people who dared to not mourn appropriately their murder they're trying to make. I think they said that we have 30,000 screenshots, which who knows if any of those are duplicates or not, but like that's nowhere near millions. But they just like throw these numbers out of their asses all the time and nobody ever fact check them. And so, she said the millions on the left celebrated and made clear they want all of us dead. I haven't seen, and I've been in the left and the right ever since this incident went down, trying to see how both sides are responding. I have seen people on the left making fun, mocking, celebrating, not unlike I myself celebrated when I heard James Dobson died of natural causes. It was like, haha, motherfucker, bye. So, that was James Dobson and nobody took him out. Well, maybe his creator he believes in, I don't know. But, people were, celebrating, mocking, but nobody that I saw was saying we need to like take out all the MAGA people. I haven't seen any of that. I myself am like, let's shun them and ban them from our spaces and refuse to employ and hire them if they have hateful beliefs that some people don't deserve to exist. And some people are less innately valuable in society based on traits and characteristics that they can't help because they were born that way. But that's very different than saying, what Marjorie claims was said. She claimed that they want all of us dead, which I've never said that. And I haven't seen out of the thousands of comments in my Facebook posts over the last few days, I haven't seen anyone say anything like that at all. Also, another claim that I don't know, like if anyone can find a screenshot proving somebody said that, I've not seen it. But I definitely don't think millions of people said anything like that. And then she continues, Marjorie Taylor Greene says, to be honest, I want a peaceful national divorce. Our country is too far gone and too far divided, and it's no longer safe for any of us. Maybe they shouldn't have started preaching hate against marginalized people, because do they expect us not to like speak back and clap back and defend ourselves? She says, what will come from Charlie Kirk being martyred is already happening. See, they're even using the language that he's going to be martyred. Like they are using him to prop him up as a martyr. It's a spiritual revival building the kingdom for Christ. Here's more of this modern manifest destiny crap that they believe in. But it will happen on the outside, not within the halls of our government. It's a bit ominous. Democrats are hardened in their beliefs and will flip the switch back as soon as they have power. And if you're expecting Republicans to fight against evil with the power they currently possess, and in this once and for all, you are going to be extremely disappointed. This week, Congress will be voting on another CR, Biden's budget, that funds transgender policies, not our own Trump policy budget that funds what you voted for. We had 9 months to get it done, but for reasons I don't understand or agree with, it wasn't the priority. Government is not the answer. God is. Turn your full faith and trust to our Almighty God and our Savior Jesus. Tighten your circle around your family and protect them at all times. I will pray for the left, but personally, I want nothing to do with them. I don't know about you, but that sounds like she is, she says a peaceful divorce, but I think she just threw the word peaceful in there to cover her own ass, in my opinion. And, it'd be really funny, if they actually got this peaceful divorce that she's calling for, because, peaceful divorce would just mean all the blue states secede, I guess, and join up together, and then all those red states that don't have the same tax revenue, because a lot of the red states basically leech money off the blue states, because the blue states, are funding everything. And so, if the blue states suddenly aren't available to fund the red states, it's going to get really ugly in red states really fast. And I say that from a red state. Like, MAGA people will be effing themselves over if the blue states take their economies and their money and stop supporting and feeding the red states. It's just not very wise for them to do this at all. So it's just really concerning to see that happening, and to see, all of these MAGA content creators talking about, how they're ready to go to civil war. But like I said, they've been ready. They've been waiting, because, like I said, that contractor we had back in after COVID 2021, around there, maybe 2022 at the latest, was already talking about how they were getting ready for war. And he was telling me about the militias and all of the things, the going at events in Texas locally. I've seen the militia out and about, because they've showed up when there was an organization trying to get the Confederate statue removed, and trying to collect signatures to get a Confederate statue removed from a town square nearby. And they showed up for that, to intimidate people. They already have their militias set up. They are primed for violence. And part of the way they've been primed for violence is by being told the other side is violent. I even watched a video by an alt-right person recently that was claiming that decolonization is violence against white people. It's just, they are so desperate to be under attack, to be the victims when they are the perpetrators. It really frustrates me. It makes me sick. Let me look in the comments really quick before I go in and look at more current events, because there's just been a lot happening. Hello. Hello. Have you heard about Groypers? Yeah. This is Trump's way to get away from the Epstein files and push for his third term. Just a theory. All of the above, possibly. Because there was a lot that the Epstein thing was really escalating before this, because the victims had just said, we're going to put together our own list and all of that. And, they think we're going to stop talking about the Epstein thing. And, if we just believe the victims, because there are so many, then we wouldn't need to depend on this shady ass government to release those files, right? Like, just believe the victims when they tell us what happened to them. There's a novel idea. Can't do that. And I want to say this to make sure we're clear. Oh, that's ugly lighting. I don't care if releasing the names of people on that list exposes Democrats, Republicans, famous people, musicians, actors, people I think I'm a fan of and like. Like, I don't care if they are a pedo. I don't know if I can say that word. You know what I'm trying to say. If they're a pedo, I want to know, because I don't want to support those people and I want them to be punished. And yeah, I know, like, punitive stuff doesn't really help rehabilitate society. It's not very trauma informed, but I really hate pedophiles. I really do. I really hate pedophiles more than I hate almost any person of any category. Probably at least as much as I hate Nazis. But I have a really, what's the opposite of a soft spot for pedophiles? Just no. So yeah, I don't care if releasing those names would destroy the entire government, because it would implicate so many people. I don't care. Punish all of them for it. Like, I don't care what party they're on. If they're on the list, fuck them. Full offense. And, I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. However, this MAGA cult very specifically has been more dangerous to people like me and people I care about, because they openly preach hate and violence. And so they are emboldening people who are hateful and violent and have been looking for an excuse for years to enact that hate and violence on other people. They are validating these people that want so badly to be victims and don't want to think critically and face their own cognitive dissonance and take a look at themselves to see that maybe they are the fucking problem. But, it's hard for a lot of these people, because these fundamentalist Christian nationalists, because many of them were indoctrinated at a very young and vulnerable age, a lot of them about my age, I'm 38, people in their 30s to 40s, like growing up through the 80s and 90s, were indoctrinated and kept away from the rest of the world from a very young age, told that people who weren't in the faith were evil and people they need to be careful not to engage with because they were going to poison their minds. This sounds like a cult, doesn't it? Go figure. But because they've been captured and indoctrinated at a young age, this is their identity. It is more than just a religion to them when they have been indoctrinated at a young age. And so when anybody has an identity that they are identifying with so hardly, like telling them something about their fundamental identity being wrong to them feels like you are telling them they are wrong. They are bad people. And some of them are bad people. But they can't separate the fact from, we have a problem with your ideals and your morals and values, if you can even call this crap they spew values. So I think it's a lack of morals and a lack of value. And, personally, it is like in a lot of ways like the followers of Christianity that often are terrible, especially the Christian nationalists. But I actually am very opposed to a lot of teachings that are in the Bible itself. Not that many of them follow the Bible, because, like just think about the story of Noah's Ark. Like, their God got mad and literally did a genocide on the entire world. Like, so, like, this is a children's story that is like so normalized. Like, in Sunday school, like you hear the story of Noah's Ark, and it's like really normalizing things like genocide from a young age, and like, that this is okay if it's done for God, and like other things like sacrificing your children because God said so. So it like justifies like murder and really horrific things. Enslaving people is kind of okay in the Bible, right? I'm opposed to a lot of the morals in this book. Um, that's just me, because there's a lot of stuff in it that just is very problematic. Even the whole story of like, Jesus dying for our sins, like that's very manipulative. That's very coercive. Like if you're in a relationship with someone, and if it's like a lot of times like manipulative, coercive parents will do this thing where they're like, look at all the things I did for you. You're not grateful for me. You owe me. And, someone will do something for you, not because it's the right thing to do or because they care, but they do it because they want something in return from you. Like they do something for you, not out of the goodness of their heart, but because there are strings attached and they can call in a favor later. That is the vibe that I get from the Jesus, um, dying for your sins thing. And like, it's very guilt trippy in my opinion. Like, and like, I always thought it was so creepy, even as a young person, like, because I have family who is Catholic. And so I did go to Catholic churches a lot when I was very young in South Texas. Because fun fact about Texas and Texans, like if you were here through colonization in Texas before Texas was part of the United States, when Texas was still Mexico, in order to come and be here, you had to be Catholic. And so like many people in my family lineage had to be Catholic and were Catholic up until the time my grandmother, who is still with us, left the Catholic Church because she didn't agree with how it spoke about and treated women as lesser than men. And so she didn't want that for her family, and she left the Catholic Church. But her mother was still Catholic, and so her mother's mother was still Catholic. And so I did get to go to Catholic churches and Catholic services growing up. And you know what? They have the least comfortable pews. I'm just going to say, like, those wooden pews, so uncomfortable, and everything in Latin. Stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. And, I think because I've been there and been through it, I have a right to talk about it. And, people are always like, you're not a Christian. You need to shut your mouth about Christian things. Well, it was, basically everywhere I went my whole life. It was unescapable. So I'm going to fucking talk about it. And now they are literally trying to force us all into something because they don't think we are able to make good decisions for ourselves, because they think they are like chosen to control the world, control the rest of us, because, we're not Christian. And so we're the problem. Fuck that. Uh, let's see. Even the ones celebrating Kirk's death, I haven't seen nobody saying that MAGA conservatives should be dead. And you've seen Erica Kirk's speech. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I haven't seen anybody making that claim that Marjorie, I was like, Majori? How do you say that name? Marjorie said. So she's full of shit. MAGA is like the Warren Jeffs cult mixed with the moral morality and the Taliban. I'm going to say I don't know moral majority. I don't know enough about the Taliban, but, I hear it's an extremist group. MAGA Christians are definitely an extremist group. And, they're so eager to blame left politics and left people for, this Kirk thing. It's really just scary. But also, like, I knew within 24 hours, we already had them coming forward to say, hey, we want to label all left-leaning organizations and groups as far extremist organizations. Like, and I was just waiting for that because I knew it was coming because only, a few weeks earlier, they had already been hinting at this. And so they were already like ready and looking for a reason to perpetuate that narrative. And it's just a shame to see because it honestly, to me, seems like it was probably one of their own guys that is taking the fall for this. Like, I don't, I mean, he could be leftist, but it doesn't seem like it so far from what I'm seeing. So it just is really fishy. Stephen Miller's pulling the strings. Stephen Miller, ugh, Nosferatu. That cracks me up. But that guy is the worst. The worst. And he's horrible. Horrible human being. But yeah, he was, one of the ones like really pushing hard on the Democrats or extreme organization or anyone left leaning. And, I'm not even a Democrat. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. But I'm definitely anti-MAGA, if that makes sense. Let's see. I'm just going back to kind of the news events. Texas has been Texasing since everything went down. There was some graffiti on the highway that said F Charlie Kirk in Texas near Houston. And Senator Cruz went out, in my opinion, for a PR stunt and himself was painting over the anti-Kirk message that was on the highway saying that he was painting or erasing evil. He said he was erasing evil by painting over it. So, it's by framing things as good versus evil, like it's dehumanizing rhetoric, right? Anytime you are like like right now in Venezuela, they sunk another boat. And they're saying it's because there was drugs on the boat. So, they're going back to this war on drugs so that they can distract from the fact that you don't go to war with inanimate objects, you go to war with people. There is no such thing as a war on drugs. It is a war on people. And it's very similar that these MAGA Christians and these Christian nationalists are perpetuating this narrative that it is a war on evil instead of a war on people. It's something they do to dehumanize, not unlike how, 9-10 years ago, we had all of these autism warrior parents who were going to war with autism because they couldn't say they were going to war with autistic people or going to war on their own children. That has a much different ring to it, doesn't it? So anytime we say, we're going against evil, a war on drugs, a war on autism, like it is distraction and dehumanizing rhetoric to justify and to distract people from the fact that you are going after people. And it would be, people would raise more eyebrows if you were like, I'm going to war with Venezuelans. Instead of, it's a war on drugs. There were drugs on the boat. And, and even in America, like on American soil, it was used to be the fact that if there was a drug charge or a drug offense, you would get a trial, right? Due process, it's supposed to be a thing. Doesn't mean that justice would be served and you wouldn't be falsely convicted for something that you didn't do, because that happens a lot, especially to poor and marginalized people in this country. But there was at least some kind of a chance to potentially have a trial. But this administration wants to do away with due process entirely, and by just shooting boats because they claim they have drugs on them, there was no due process for a drug offense, potentially, which, I mean, we don't know. These people could just be poor fisher people. They're just out there fishing. And they're like, hey, where's the evidence? And Trump's like, it's all over the ocean. The drugs are all over the ocean. Well, if the drugs are all over the ocean, we don't have that evidence. Like, they're gone. He's like, just look at the drugs all over the ocean. Nobody can go look at the the drugs that supposedly are all over the ocean to verify if that evidence is true or exists. So he is executing Venezuelans without due process and claiming it's because of drugs. And we don't have any evidence because there was no due process. There was no arrest. There is no collection of evidence. It's just been blown all over the ocean. It's really disgusting. Speaking of Texas being Texas, there's a case that I'm hearing a lot of different things about, but there was a video where I'll just read what the news story says. Meanwhile, in Texas Governor Greg Abbott responded to a video, which is someone mocking mourners of Charlie Kirk, which I received millions of views on Monday morning, writing on social media. Definitely picked the wrong school to taunt the death of Charlie Kirk, thanks Texas Tech. In another post with a picture of the woman being handcuffed by police, Abbott wrote, "This is what happens to the person who was mocking Charlie Kirk assassination at Texas Tech. FAFO. Carmen Giselle Booker, 18, was arrested Friday. A school spokesperson told News Nation that she's no longer enrolled at the university following reports that she was expelled. Any behavior that denigrates victims of violence is reprehensible, has no place in our campus, not aligned with our values," the spokesperson wrote. And so the headline on that is "Student Arrested After Video Mocking Charlie Kirk Mourners Goes Viral." And they're claiming the charge is assault, which I'm waiting to see if there's like a video of an assault actually happening. Being as this is not a white person and there's claims of assault, but we're in Texas, right? And so Texas, our police force is very racist. They are very tyrannical. They are not above manufacturing charges and evidence. And so being that this happened in Texas, until I see a video of her actually assaulting someone, I'm not going to believe there was an assault. Because, similarly, we had, remember when those Democratic lawmakers went to go do an inspection of that ICE facility, and the ICE agents tried to manufacture assault claims and say that they assaulted the officers when, we have video evidence that contradicts those claims entirely. And so, we can't know if this person actually really did any assault or if it was just something that was manufactured, because, they tried to say on the other one, like they used ICE body cam footage of ICE agents bumping into these senators to say the senators were assaulting and bumping into them. But when you zoom out and saw videos that bystanders had, you saw that ICE were the ones making advances and bumping, but they were trying to charge the senators. And so, these are powerful people that have means to fight back versus a young Black student in Texas who does not have those resources to prove their case. And so I'm very suspicious, if there was actually an assault or not on that. But, perhaps even more disturbing is what happened at Delta State University with Trey Reed. And so if you haven't heard, this is very triggering, very upsetting. A Black student was found hanging in a tree in Mississippi, I believe. Mississippi? Is that correct? Or Tennessee? One of those like really racist states, right? Geography is not my thing. Hang on. Does anybody remember what state it was? If it was Mississippi or Tennessee. It was one of those racist states. And just being that it's in one of those racist states, what is really disturbing is that on Monday afternoon, Delta State University police announced that there was no foul play currently suspected in this death. Excuse me, what the fuck? So Like, we can't trust these MAGA governors and these MAGA people in power to hold people accountable and to not make shit up. Just like the Utah governor is really intent to try and blame the alleged Charlie Kirk assassin for being on the left, when so far, if there was evidence of that, I think that the evidence would be everywhere and they would be showing that. And so, when people in places of authority and power make these claims, MAGA is really quick to go and use that as like evidence, but it's just like their words that don't have any evidence, and they're politicians. We should know they lie by now. Like, we should know they lie. And I'm sorry, for them to so quickly say they don't suspect foul play when a young man was found hanging in a tree in a racist ass state. And I even had, like, within minutes, some MAGA person who I quickly banned from my Facebook page dropping in to say, just sharing this news story about this atrocity that happened to Trey Reed was fanning the fans of hate against MAGA, that you shouldn't share this news story because it's going to generate hate against MAGA people. And it's like, nobody said who did it or what. And in fact, the news story I shared, it was hard for me to find one that didn't claim there was no foul play. It just was like, we don't know what's happened yet. Because I was like, I refuse to share one that's saying there's no foul play because you can't freaking know that already. But just sharing that this happened, which in my opinion is a lynching, was anti-MAGA. It's going to make people mad at MAGA. It's like, sounds like your side is violent if you think that sharing this news article is inflammatory. And honestly, this happened like so quickly after the Charlie Kirk thing. Just we've got this escalating violence and they're ready to go. They are ready to go. Now, I'm going to shift gears really quick because the clock is ticking and I am going to have to log off before too much longer, just as it's getting warm in here and I've got fans but no AC. I'm starting to sweat. It's Texas heat in the morning. But there are some other things that have happened that I think are really important to talk about because they affect a lot of us. So recently, USAID, which is now being run by Russell Vought, who is one of the main architects of Project 2025. Remember how they said, oh, we don't know, we don't have anything to do with this Project 2025. I've never heard of it. But now, ridiculously, all these Heritage Foundation Project 2025 people, Stephen Miller, Russell Vought, are now in positions of power within our government. And here we are. They didn't know anything about Project 2025, except now we're like, what's the percentage? There's like a Project 2025 tracker that tracks how far done they are towards all their goals. Like, all these pieces of it have been enacted when miraculously they didn't know about it, so they claim. And so, one of the things that is in the agenda of Project 2025, if you want to know what the regime is up to, what their plan is, just read Project 2025. They literally put their plan out on the internet, and it just sounded so ridiculous to some people that they were just like dismissed as, this is never going to happen, it's unconstitutional. I want to give those people the finger so badly, but I understand how it sounded like it was impossible and never going to happen. It was just very frustrating to have everybody tell me I was a conspiracy nut and I was an alarmist and I was like making a big deal out of nothing when I tried to say, hey, this is a problem, this is coming, we really need to adjust and do something about this, or we're all going to be in trouble. And people are like, stop spreading fear, you're this isn't like, they were just so dismissive with those of us that were like, hey, this is a problem. And I wouldn't have found out about Project 2025 if it wasn't for that Christian nationalist guy who told me about it, because he thought I was going to be on board. He thought I was going to love this fascist takeover that hates queer people and hates brown people and hates disabled people and hates neurodivergent people. He thought I was going to be so cool with that for some reason. And so, he gave the whole plan away, and I started digging into it, and I was like, holy fuck. And I wouldn't have thought it was such a big deal, honestly, if I hadn't heard the way he spoke about this and how he's like, oh, they're never going to see what's coming. And how he was just like, so like, there's going to be a holy war and you got to get prepared now. You got to start getting your supplies. You got to get your guns. That's like, he was like trying to like warn me to get ready for like a war he thought I was going to be on their side for, years ago. So like, they're ready for this. Um, And so, one of the things on their agenda is to not only get rid of abortion access nationwide, they want to get rid of birth control as well. They don't want people to be able to say no to giving birth, while at the same time, they don't want to put funds in place to take care of these children once they're alive. They only care about them when they're fetuses. They don't care about, life. Because if they cared about life, they wouldn't force people to go through pregnancies that could kill them or to have children they can't support. They would support these children, right? They wouldn't be killing Venezuelans. They wouldn't be cheering on alligator Alcatraz and people getting eaten by alligators. If they cared about life, if life was so precious to them, they wouldn't be doing all the bullshit they're doing. And so, like, they're not pro-life. They're pro-forced birth. So it really annoys me when they say pro-life. Because birth control and abortions save lives, and they want to take that away. So let me read. According to a statement from USAID, being run by Russell Vought, the far-right head of the White House Office of Management and Budget (OEM), the administration will no longer supply abortion-facent birth control under the guise of foreign aid. They're calling birth control abortion now, basically. And so, the problem, of course, is that this new explanation is at odds with reality because contraceptives do not induce abortion. But the administration is suggesting otherwise. And this is really foreshadowing at where they plan to go with birth control. Because, this is like what they were destroying instead of like redistributing and like getting back. Because it costs us more money to destroy this stuff instead of to like let it be reused. But they hate birth control so much. It's a bunch of birth control pills. It's IUDs or IUDs. I don't know. I haven't had one, but like birth control. They are now like going to war on birth control and Plan B and things like that, and medication abortion. And so, it's not just about abortion. It is totally about forced birth. And so, eventually they do want to come for birth control and take that away from us. We'll see if they're successful or not. It may depend on the state. But, like even in Texas, like they've got a new bill that they put up, or it's a law that, supposedly went into effect that I'm hoping gets challenged, excuse me, where, if someone sends like a medication abortion to someone in Texas or provides abortions services to people in Texas, like you can sue them, right? And this is to discourage people from providing life-saving medications to Texans. And so like it's already happening in a lot of places. And, if they want to have all these children be born, then they should be making it easier for people to support these children so they don't have really fucked up traumatic lives. And, like why if they're pro-life are they getting rid of free school lunches and school lunches? Why aren't they like actually doing things to support life once life is out of the womb? They're not doing like New Mexico. Cheers to New Mexico, that is going to provide childcare to anyone who needs it as a benefit from the state now. Like, yay, New Mexico. Like, we'll see how that comes to fruition. But like having childcare available, that's a good way to encourage people, not force people to have more children. Like, there are ways, if you really want to encourage people to be able to have children, if that is something they want to do. But forcing children to be born to parents who do not want them is one of the coolest things you can do, not only to a parent, but to a child, because it is a very special kind of trauma for a young person to grow up believing that they're not wanted or that their existence destroyed their parents' lives or that they're a burden. Like that is a very serious trauma that if a child endures believing that they shouldn't exist, they shouldn't have been born, they weren't wanted, will carry with them their entire lives long into adulthood. It is very cruel. It is not being kind to that child. And speaking of cruelty, switching it up, we're going back and forth. Several days ago, 2 days ago, 2 or 3 days ago, there was a new bill that was proposed that would allow Rubio to strip U.S. citizens of their passports of political speech in response to people speaking out against Charlie Kirk's. And even sharing his own words is apparently offensive to a lot of them. And, they've already kind of tested this with revoking student visas and things like that. And I was hearing as of this morning that Marco Rubio has already started revoking visas of non-citizens who dared to criticize Charlie Kirk. So, I started with people who were criticizing Israel, which I want to be clear, there's like a major difference between criticizing Israel, the Israeli government, Netanyahu, and criticizing and hating Jewish people. Like, it is not anti-Semitic to have beef with a government, right? Just think about that. Let's parallel this to America. Imagine if people, MAGAs actually believe this, which is sad because they're extremists, said that it was anti-American hate to criticize Donald Trump and the American government. That totally ignores the fact that there are many Americans who do not agree with Donald Trump and MAGA and what our American government is doing. I am not, as someone who is, I have an American passport. I've been here since, I've been where I am since before the part of the world I am was even part of America. And I'm not offended, and I don't feel people hate me when they talk badly about the American government, because the American government and American people are very different things. But we saw they started penalizing free speech by saying speaking out against Israel is anti-Semitism. And people speaking out against Israel innately isn't anti-Semitic. There may be anti-Semitic things being said in addition to speaking out against Israel. But though just being opposed to what the Israel government is doing and saying that they are committing a genocide shouldn't be thought of as anti-Semitic. And I'm sure people are going to come at me for saying that. But that was something that was kind of this doorway to attacking people for freedom of speech, for political speech, like revoking people's visas. And now, they want to strip U.S. citizens' passports for saying bad things about Charlie Kirk because, worked so far. They would do these little tests to see what they can get away with. They're like testing the waters. Go a little further. Go a little further. How far can we push this? And, it's already, it's already, like the UN commission, like said, Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. Like it has been said, like outside of America, like it's okay to say this is genocide, but I might get in trouble just for saying that on Substack. I don't know. I know you can't say that on Facebook without it getting downranked. Like anytime I share any post on that subject, it's buried. The algorithm doesn't feed it to anybody. Let's see. Yeah. But yeah. Funny. Yeah. It's just hard to see so much going on. And it's like I keep reading and reading horrifying news stories all day. Trump's sending National Guard into more cities, um, saying he's cracking down on crime when really the answer to crime is making sure people have enough resources to survive so that they don't depend on other means for survival, right? And then so many things that are criminalized are really only punishable if you are poor. Like let me show this logic. Like for example, we'll talk about something light, like a speeding ticket, right? Like I learned this when I was working for a very spoiled, rotten, wealthy executive many years ago, which kind of is what radicalized me, is just seeing how much money they waste on corporate parties and events, like millions of dollars for an event, just so they can like show off their money and their status, that they are able to waste millions on having an extravagant, lush event. Meanwhile, people are starving, and those of us putting on these events aren't getting paid even a living wage. And the more money these people throw at you, the more abuse you are expected to take from them because they have money, right? And so I was helping with this event that had this ridiculous budget that was probably in the millions. And they wanted to put a sign up in a way that was illegal and would violate city code. And I had already got word from the city that this would not be approved. This was not allowed. This is not okay. You can't do it. But the client was like, I don't care. I want this giant banner hanging on the side of the whole building. We will take the fine. We will do the crime. We don't care. Just put it up, make it happen. We don't care if it's illegal. And so I was forced to help put like this illegal banner up on this building, which I didn't put any of my name on the paperwork because I can't afford any kind of criminal charges, right? So I put my boss's information on there. And she was like, yeah, it's worth it. You deal with it later. You do the crime and you deal with it later. You sort it out, because she has lawyers and she has money. And she was like, I've got a misdemeanor charge. And she was like, thought it was so funny. It's like, yeah, how privileged for you that you can just like pay that and make that go away. Like even like a speeding ticket, these rich people that have all this money, they can speed and they don't care if their insurance goes up, and they don't care if they get speeding tickets because they can just pay the ticket because $300 is nothing to them. Meanwhile, if I get a $300 speeding ticket, I might not be eating this month because there goes my grocery money, or someone else might lose the roof they have over their head because they have a speeding ticket. Or, we have people who can't afford to pay whatever random charge they're charged with for whatever thing that is a crime, which really, like I said, crime only like being punished really only matters to people who don't have financial resources. Like if you don't have the financial resources, you have to go sit in jail potentially, right? And then you lose your job and then you ruin your life. But meanwhile, for rich people and people with money and financial means, they're like, yeah, no big deal. I'll just pay the fine. So really, because it's pennies to them, it's like, oh, this is like $30 to me. I'm rich. $300 is like $30. I won't even miss it. But to those of us who don't have financial means, it can be life ruining to be charged with any kind of crime, even a small crime, because it's like we don't have the resources. And so the punishment is disproportional for those of us who don't have financial resources. Similar to how, these people with money, like it was always interesting to me to see how they could get away from paying like taxes and how they pay less of their money in taxes, and how they have all of these ways to like make all of these things like tax write-offs. Like I was just impressed with how they're like, okay, we're going to make this business trip and we're going to have one meeting for an entire week. We're on this international trip. That way I can write this entire trip off on the taxes and like, so not pay as many taxes. And so they would take their entire staff on all expenses paid vacations and have one little meeting for 1 hour and the whole week we were gone. That way they could write off the entire all expenses paid vacation of the entire team, which wasn't as good as it sounds like it would be. There's a lot of problems with it and it really sucked. But so they could write it off so they could lower their taxes and just have a paid vacation to Cancun or Costa Rica or something, because like they knew how to like avoid paying taxes. And so they pay so much less taxes than the rest of us, because if you have enough money, you can spend enough money to like lower your tax brackets so much that you aren't paying shit. Meanwhile, I don't spend enough. And so every time I itemize all my crap, because I don't spend very much on anything, like it's never more than the standard deduction. And so they're always like, you spend all this time itemizing, and then you get to the end and it's like, you're better off taking the standardized deduction. Like and like, you know, the penalties for like being a self-employed tax, like you pay more taxes for being self-employed. Like there's a penalty for that, because they don't want people to just go be self-employed. It's not what they want us to be doing. They don't want us to have that kind of freedom. They want us to go be little worker bee factory workers, fast food workers. They want us to go work for these billionaires and millionaires to help them make money. They want us to be easy to exploit. And that's something else I learned in my corporate job that really radicalized me, was like the way I was a recruiter for this company, and they really looked for people that were easier to exploit. And we were kind of trained to look for people that were easy to exploit, but they didn't tell us that's what it was. And just like, I kind of figured this out after a while. And even myself, like I was easy to exploit. And they used that to be like, you're so lucky to even be here. You're the only one that doesn't have a college degree. You're lucky to be here. Do you know how lucky you are to be here when you don't even have a college degree? There's so many people that want to work here, and they all have college degrees. Like you are lucky to be here. And and that was the thing. Like we told everyone how lucky they were to just be employed in this company that was basically going to exploit the fuck out of them. It's a privilege to be here because so many people want to work in this very exclusive company. We get 700 resumes a year, and we only take like 2 to 5 people a year. And a lot of people don't even last here because it's just like this badge of honor, like how much abuse you can take. They would literally phrase the fact that working in corporate events, they would claim, was just as stressful or even possibly more stressful than working in law enforcement and EMS and rescue services. They were like, this is a badge of honor. Your job is so stressful. And so it was like, how much stress and abuse can you take in this abusive job? And it was like supposed to be a good thing that the job was stressful and you were awesome for doing a really stressful, exploitive job. Like so exploitive, which is kind of why I started to get really obsessed with coercive control and manipulation. Because they were like, you know, you need to be here. Like you're lucky to be here. Like, look at all these things. Like, you should be so grateful. It was more of that, that manipulation. Like, look at this. You should be grateful for this. You should want this. You should be grateful that we're abusing you and we don't want you to have a personal life. That was the attitude in this corporate culture. And so nobody was getting paid overtime. We were all classified as exempt employees illegally. And they like classified like we were all managers and that we weren't really reporting to anybody. And so we were managers. And so but we weren't all managers. It was bullshit. It was just a way to not pay overtime. And so like we were all working, we were told we'd work 40 to 45 hours a week, but a lot of us were working 60 hours a week or more. And when we didn't, it was like used to like guilt trip people. Like, look, they're putting all this effort. They're putting in extra. They're going to all these extra events. They're putting in extra time that they don't have to put in, and you're not putting in as much extra effort as everyone else. And they would use it to like guilt trip you against your peers and be like, look, they're working 60 hours. You only worked 40 hours. You only are doing the bare minimum. Like, do you even care about the fact that you are so lucky to be here because you're only doing 40, 45 hours when your rest of your peers are doing 50 to 60 hours? Like, you're not pulling your weight. You're not giving all of yourself to this company, basically. And that was like this toxic thing they did. And it was just so horrible. And then when people weren't exploitable or were too neurodivergent and couldn't mask well enough, they were like pushed out for being a bad culture fit. And then if you would leave and dare to say anything bad about the company, which is why I'm very careful to describe the company without giving away what the name of the company is. I don't have the company listed anywhere on my LinkedIn or anything like that. Because I wrote a lot about this company and the toxic culture in my book, Workplace Neurodiversity Rising, because the owner of this company likes to sue people that say bad things about her. And so if you speak out bad about this company or this person and the shit that happened there, because it was straight up abusive, she would come after you and sue people. And I knew that because I worked very closely with her. And so, like, we had one woman that basically put on Facebook that she didn't recommend anybody working for this company if they have a family or children, because the boss basically told her that, like, wanting to be there for her child and refusing to travel everywhere and leave her child all the time and leave her family all the time was holding her back in her career. And she needed to be more willing to leave her small toddler and get childcare for the kid and stop trying to be home so much, and that was like holding her career back. And if she wasn't going to agree to do that, then she was not going to move forward anymore in the company. And so she quit, and she basically put this out there. But she made the mistake of people knew what company it was, knew the person, and so she basically got like because we had to all sign these NDAs and non-disclosures and non-compete kind of orders when we were onboarded here. She just hit her with the NDA. Like, this is like, she basically got her lawyers to go after her and make her take the social media post down, because you're giving away company secrets. You're disclosing, like, basically if you disclose anything that happened in one of your like team meetings and it was identifiable and traceable back to that company, she would sue you and be like, you are violating your NDA by talking about this, even if it was like your personal experience. And so it does sound like Donald Trump. Yeah, it's coercion, control, and abuse, and exploitation. And so when I put out my book, Workplace Neurodiversity Rising, someone who claimed to be from a big news publication that said they wanted to interview me about my book, and they had questions, like a pre-screening before the interview, which is kind of weird because I've never had a big publication do it in this way. And because I was close to this person, it was giving red flags off in me. And so I was very suspicious of this. I also saw that he was like connected to her on LinkedIn. And so I was like, that's interesting. And so when he was interviewing me and asking me questions about the employer in my book, he was like, well, I'm going to need to verify who this employer is. Can you tell me who they are? And I was like, no, absolutely not. For my safety, I cannot tell you who it is because they like to sue people. And I signed an NDA. And so I cannot tell you more than what I have put in the book. And he's like, well, do you think potentially, based on the information that you have publicly online or that, is in the book, that anything in the book makes them identifiable? And I was like, that's really suspicious that you would ask this question. I was like, I don't know. I've tried very hard not to allow that company to be identifiable. It's like, maybe if they dug hard enough, they could potentially dig something up. Um, But, I've tried really hard to scrub any ties to that company so that they can't sue me to cover my ass, because I know they're sue happy. And um, right after that, within, I think, a week, my old boss who was still friends with me on Facebook at the time, and I don't think they still are. They probably aren't. I don't know. I hope not. I think I unfriended her after that. She like commented outing herself on a post about my book and was like, I'm sorry you had a bad time. And, is there, but, a lot of these things just aren't realistic because we have to make a bottom line and we have to make a profit and all this. And I'm just thinking, you are putting on $1 million events and you want to complain about how most of the things in the book are actually free, wouldn't have cost you any money. And then how also you're not paying a living wage. And I didn't respond because I was like, this feels like a trap. Because then I would be confirming what company was in the book. And so I think I hid or deleted her comment because it was like, you just outed yourself. And then I was like, they were trying to trap me. It was a trap. They were trying to get me to violate my NDA so they could sue my ass and get rid of my Workplace Neurodiversity Rising book. Checkmate. Didn't work. And I also went and like double checked. I'm like, they're not on my LinkedIn. They're nowhere. No ties. Block them on social media everywhere. But I knew that she was like that because there was another time when another employee left because he was done being exploited by her. And she basically got mad about it and was huffing and puffing and talking about how she knows everyone in the industry locally and she'll make sure nobody hires him. And then like she was just like, if anyone ever talks bad about me, like talking to me as if I'm not going to be like, what the fuck? She was just like, I can ruin them. I can make sure people cannot work in this industry, in this town, and maybe even in the whole state if they don't want to talk nice about me when they leave. They need to leave on good terms with me. And so, like, people that played nicely with her, she would help them leave on good terms and even help them find another job in another company because she was so well connected. But if people left and didn't leave the way she wanted, she would ruin people and took pleasure in the fact that she could ruin people. And like, even when I was leaving the company, like, and this happened to other people who left after me, like, she wanted to be in control of the message I told other people about why I was leaving. Because if I would have not gone with whatever official story she wanted me to go with while leaving her company, like, she was probably going to fire me right away and then start trying to like do vindictive bullshit on me. And so like when I left the company, I told her, well, I started working this other job part-time and they are offering me a lot more money than you are paying, and they're actually going to pay me in cash instead of a bunch of perks, and it's going to be a more flexible schedule. They're going to let me work from home, and I'm going to have a lot more autonomy, and there's just a lot more room for me to potentially move up in this company, and it's just a much better deal for me. And I don't remember what the official story she had me say I had to agree that would be my official story for leaving, but she didn't like any of that because she didn't want, I know specifically she didn't want me telling people that I was going to be making a lot more money because that was disparaging to her in some way. She didn't want me saying that I was going to have more freedom because she wanted people to believe they had so much freedom working for her and they didn't. She didn't want me saying it would be better work-life balance at this other company. Like, there were all these things I could not say. And she was like, and I don't remember what it was that I was allowed to say, but she was like, this is what we want. How about you say this? And this is how I want you to present it. Like, it's just time for you to move on, I think is what it was, or something like very neutral. And so, that's what she would do with people when they said they were leaving. She would meet with them very quickly, find out what their why they were leaving, and then help them construct an official story as to why they were leaving her company that didn't make her company or her look bad. And so, like, there was another person, because I had a friend who still worked at this company for a couple of years after I left, who was leaving. And this boss, I almost said her name. This boss helped the person who was leaving construct an official story, told her what she wanted her to tell everybody was her official reason for leaving. And she told someone in the company the real reason she was leaving instead of the official story that was made up to protect the company's ass. And she was just like, let go, and then smeared everywhere in the city because she didn't go along with the official narrative this boss wanted to put out for her. So that's the kind of toxic shit, the coercion, the manipulation, it's like it's like interesting how the abusive, manipulative force of control in like other kinds of abusive relationships is so similar to coercive control and abuse in corporate relationships. It's like when you break up with an abusive, manipulative partner or family member, all of a sudden they go around running around spreading their official story about what happened to the people around you that they think you might tell something bad about them because they want to poison the well first and control the narrative because they don't want the truth to get out. They want to turn everybody against you and win people to their side. And if they weren't lying and manipulating, coercive, and being abusive, they wouldn't have to do that because the truth could just speak for itself. So now that I've seen it, it's a pattern I can't unsee. Let me see comments really quick before I log off because I'm going to have to go soon. Sounds like Donald Trump and his suing over the years. Yeah, it's very similar. Donald Trump announced, I think just today, actually, that he's going to sue someone else. He is going to be suing. He filed a $15 billion defamation and libel lawsuit against the New York Times today. That's a news story that came out. I haven't dug into that yet. But yeah, manipulative, abusive people sue and use their money to silence others. J.K. Rowling did similar, suing people that said bad things about her into silence years ago. But she couldn't do shit to those of us in America because we used to have free speech in this country. Used to. Past tense. But that's the threat, and like someone even like I need to cover this. I haven't covered it yet, but there was even someone that was claiming that filming ICE and publicizing ICE raids was an act of violence against ICE. Like these MAGA people are really quick to call things violence that aren't violence, so that they can ignore real violence as it's happening. It's just the hypocrisy. It's the hypocrisy for me. It just really frustrates and irritates me. I'm someone who manipulation, coercion, control, abuse, and lies are probably the thing that ticked me off more than anything else. And having this puppet figurehead who just lies and lies and lies and manipulates and coerces, it feels personal to me. It gets me, especially when there are very many similarities to other abusive relationships I've been in, be them romantic, frenemy, friendship, that weren't really friendships, workplace abusive relationships. Like all of these parallels are just so glaringly obvious now that I've like done a lot of trauma work and like deconstructed why I was someone who was very vulnerable to abuse and coercive control for the first 30 years of my life. And unpack that and learn to see these patterns and red flags to protect myself. And now it's like they are everywhere staring me in the face in society. And it just really, it gets under my skin so much to see. So yeah, I guess I'm glad I did the work when I did the work so I can see it now to get me to a place where I am equipped and ready to fight back. And, I think that is where we are in the world right now, where truth is the threat. And if truth is the threat, then you are wrong. If you're afraid of the truth, if you're going to be harmed by the truth coming out, that just means you're a liar. and I'm just tired of it. Do you think the midterms still could be the beginning change against the agent of stopping MAGA? I don't know. I don't know if we'll get that far to these midterms, if they will happen. If they do happen, I don't know that they will be fair. Look, we've already seen Texas gerrymandering the crap out of things. Trump trying to get access to voting machines that, like, potentially, like, are they trying to tamper with shit? Or with maggots calling for a civil war now that they've martyred Kirk. Like, will they start the escalation of violence before we get that far? There's so many just cards on the table, I guess, to use a metaphor, that I can't even be confident we will get to those midterms. And if we do get that far, I don't think we should wait. I don't think it's safe to wait and just hope something that may or may not happen and may not happen fairly. They're so, with them, everything they scream about is usually an accusation, right? And so, they've just been claiming these elections have been rigged for so long, when it's like, okay, does that mean they're about to rig the elections? And I really wouldn't put it past them. There was even video of Trump talking about how, it sounded like to me he was saying Elon helped him rig the election, and that's the only reason he got in office recently. And I don't know if that's true or not, disclaimer, but it's a really funny thing to say. And even Elon was kind of talking similar. If Trump doesn't get elected, I'm going to jail, kind of a thing. So there's motivation there for Elon. And then there's that really disturbing video of Elon and his poor son X just laughing maniacally and talking about maybe rigging the election. And so it's really questionable. And so I don't feel comfortable counting on midterms being a turning point, because I know with what's going on, I don't even know that we'd have a fair, free election. Like I said, looking at all the Republican states gerrymandering things to get extra seats and all that, it just doesn't sit right with me. I don't think it's wise for us to think this midterm, which is a ways away now, will save us. Because look, we've already had a young Black man hanging from a tree at a university, and they're trying to say no foul play so quick without even really having time to do an investigation on it. Violence is already escalating. And so I don't know what could be happening by the time the midterms happen. And it's honestly kind of scary. Yeah. All right, everyone. I am going to wrap it up and log off. Oh wait, let me do something really quick. Let me grab us something. Grab us something, because it's too hot to wear, and I needed to show and tell, because it's still available. I'm in Texas, and so the sweater's a bit ridiculous, but I'm really excited about this new sweater. It comes in t-shirts and tank tops too. But this blog has really been made possible by my readers who've either subscribed on Substack monetarily, who've shared my posts, even if you don't have monetary means to celebrate. Sharing my content is so helpful. It's a priceless way you can help. There's no price you can put on that. This is my latest sweater. It has a t-shirt, it has tank tops, it has hoodies. I'll try to remember to put a link to it on the replay. It says refusing assimilation into neurotypical society, Neurodivergent Rebel. I've been doing a new design every quarter. And so this is the third design. It all started with a shirt that, in true ADHD fashion, I wasn't going to do. I chickened out. I'm like, nobody's going to buy this right now. The economy's going to shit. We're on the verge of a catastrophe. I don't think anyone's going to want a sweater. And so or a shirt. And I was like, I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to launch it. And then I forgot that I had auto scheduled it. And it launched itself, and I got an email. It's your campaign has been launched. And I'm like, oops, I guess I'll tell people about it. And I was thinking, nobody's going to buy a shirt right now. And it was a really big success. Like um, it's just, and it's been that something that ever since that first shirt in this first quarter, that my wonderful readers and viewers like rallied around me and helped support the blog by buying the shirt, that I've decided that I'm going to do a new a new short a new shirt each season. So this is my fall shirt. I actually need to work with the design team. I'll put a link because I've got it pinned on my Facebook page in when the replay is up, because I don't know how to get the link. It's on Fourth Wall. If you search neurodivergent, no, it's not on Fourth Wall. I'm sorry, it's not. It's on Bonfire. If you search Neurodivergent Rebel on Bonfire, you'll probably find it. But when the replay of this is up, I'll post a link to it, because that's my newest one, and there might be old links out there. If you go to Facebook, it's pinned on the top of my Facebook page. Hang on, let me grab one other thing. I should have been prepared, but here I am unprepared, because I was running around like a little chicken with my head cut off today. Well, that's a graphic image. I'm sorry. I shouldn't describe something so violent like that. See, they say we're violent, and it's like, I don't even like describing decapitated chickens. And when you eat decapitated chickens, the other way you can support the work I do, look, it matches the sweater, is if you want to buy Workplace Neurodiversity Rising, that's a good way to help. If you have already bought a copy, something you can do that's so freaking helpful is to review this anywhere books are available. Paperbacks can be gotten words at Barnes and Noble. You got to order it online. If you please don't order it from Amazon. I told Amazon to unpublish my book, and for some reason, there's still one place it is still available on Amazon, and I don't know why, but on my end, I unpublished it. So please don't buy it from Amazon. Like, search for it, buy it anywhere but Amazon. But what you can also do, if you haven't read it yet and you don't have money to buy a book, this is so helpful, and it's something you can do for free. Uh, is and is like, call your local library or email your local library and ask them to carry Workplace Neurodiversity Rising by Lyric Rivera. That is an amazing way you can help support my work, is to ask your local library to get this book. It'll help me so much. The other thing about that is the exchange rate when a library picks up a book, it pays the author a bit more, because the library buys it at a higher price because they are under the assumption that multiple people will check it out. And so they pay authors a bit more usually when you are putting a book in a library. And so that actually helps more people access it for free who might not be able to afford the book, so they can get their hand on it for free. And I love that. I love libraries. Libraries are just kind of always been my space when I was a young person. Libraries feel good. Even now, you walk into the library, it's just like, it smells like books and sometimes coffee. Two of my favorite things, books and coffee. You work at the library? Oh my gosh. It sounds like a really nice place to work. I could be wrong. It depends on the culture, but I love libraries. And so yeah, requesting this from your local library is a really good way to help. Excuse me. Get that dry throat tickle thing. It's really hot in here. I just ran out of beverage. But yeah, like I said, requesting the library get Workplace Neurodiversity Rising, reviewing the book. Those are really big ways to help. Like I said, if you can buy a shirt or a sweater, these will be out until winter. So all of fall, this will be available. So you don't have to rush. They ship about every 2 weeks. And so you order and then it waits 2 weeks and they all ship at once. Unfortunately, if you're not in the United States, I don't know. There may be limited places you can get them because of where the distribution is, since unfortunately a lot of countries have stopped mail. Hey, good morning. You're coming in right as I'm logging off. I'm sorry. It's good to see you though. So, if you're not in the United States, they might not be mailing. But the book is available in international retailers, and so you can order it in your own countries. There's ebook, there's an audiobook that it took me so many hours to read. I did the audiobook myself at home with a microphone and a computer. It was one of the hardest things I ever did. You have to get it exactly correct. Word for word, clearly, no background noise, no anything. And so it's really hard to get this audiobook done. And it was so much work. So if you want an audiobook of this, you can listen to it. I'll put a link to that and the replay as well. It'll probably be about an hour and a half, an hour, maybe two at the most before the video is done processing. And then I'll post the replay up for rewatch. I like to review it and make sure it lets me put a caption up before I post the replay. So the replay will be up. It'll be free for anyone to watch. I've got some more personal news, but I'm going to wait to announce that until a future live. I'm going to be taking a little bit of like a break, like a little hiatus for a little while from live videos in October. I guess I'm telling you now. But I'll still be doing some written posts, but I need to go be in the woods for a while. So David and I are going to go be in the woods, and we may not have good internet, so I might not be able to go live for a lot of the month of October if we can do the thing we want to do. So fingers crossed that works, because I just, both of us could really use a reset, especially with everything going on. But more details to come on that if it looks like it's going to actually happen. That's our plan right now. So if just eventually prepare people, give people advance notice so that it's coming. Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm really grateful for all the things you could do with your time, all the people you could spend your time, like you chose to spend your time with me and my little wonderful community here on Substack. It's really an honor and a privilege to have so many of you that are willing to spend a little bit of the morning with me. And so thank you for that. I'm really grateful. And I thank you. Seriously. Thank you, everyone. I will be back. Wait, let me check my calendar. I think I will be back next week. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's the 19th. Yeah. So I will be back next week to do another live. I don't know if it'll be all like Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. I don't know. I don't know what day. I keep these flexible because then it feels less like a demand. And then it's like I can move it, and I don't know. It just, when I used to like pre-schedule them this time, this date, this day, it like felt it wasn't a good feeling. And now it's like I have the flexibility. I can do once a week. I was doing once a month and it felt like too much. And now I can do once a week if I don't have to like set in stone when they will be. And because of that, because I don't publicize in advance when I'm coming on here to go live, I don't give you all a chance to plan. Sorry. Because of that, I do always put these replays up for free for anyone who wants to rewatch it if you miss it when it's live. And so this replay will be up. It will be free for paid and free subscribers to watch on Substack later today. So, all right, everyone, please stay safe out there. I know. I owe you an email, Larnell. I've had a lot of personal things going on offline that I'm not going to disclose because it has to do with other people's lives, not just my own life. Yeah, responsibilities in life and things. And I'm about to go offline for like a whole month, and so it's kind of tricky because I'm in this like prepare time before I go disappear for a month. But anyway, I haven't forgot. Like I've got your email like bookmarked, and I've got like a reminder on my calendar. I just keep having to like snooze it and move it back because life keeps happening. But anyway, I'm grateful for all of you. Thank you so much. Stay safe, like I said. Be careful, and I will talk to you next week at some undisclosed time from some undisclosed location. Bye, everyone.